My mom ignored the abuse, but my babysitter risked everything to save me. At 12, my stepfather started sneaking into my bedroom at night, and my mother knew but stayed silent. When I confided in my teacher, my mother turned against me, insisting I was inventing tales about my stepfather. That same year, my mom hired Emily to look after me, and I took an instant dislike to her. Not because she was mean, she was kind, or because she ignored me, she played with me, but because she seemed to resent my bond with my stepfather, Jack. Jack, a police officer who'd moved in 3 months prior, had become like a new dad. He gave me fancy dresses, took me to animated films, and always kept me safe with treats like candy. Yet Emily seemed fixated on him, as if she had a crush. Whenever Jack and I got close, she'd appear, cutting into our talks. If he sat next to me on the couch, she'd suddenly need me for chores. When he offered to drive me to ballet, she insisted on coming along. Once, as I went to join Jack in the garden, Emily grabbed my arm so hard it nearly left marks. At 12, I wasn't gullible, and I wasn't one to stay quiet. After 2 weeks of this, I asked Jack why Emily was so clingy. Jack was gentle. He said Emily's father had passed, making her jealous of our closeness. It puzzled me because her phone's lock screen showed her with her dad. Still, I trusted Jack and let it slide. But the next day, it happened again. My parents were both meant to work late, but Jack's shift got canceled, so Emily stayed on. Before bed, Jack told me to meet him at the front door at 10 p.m. for a secret ice cream trip. When the time came, I crept quietly down the hall. But just as I reached the door, Emily appeared, seized my shoulders, and lifted me off the ground. I struggled, but she carried me back to my room, her grip bruising my arms. As I tried to yell, she covered my mouth, tucked me in, and said, "You'll understand someday," before shutting the door. I was livid, truly fed up. So I told the police, meaning Jack. His face darkened when I explained. He took pictures of the marks on my arms. When my mom woke up, they agreed to fire Emily immediately. They warned her of legal action if she came near us again. They decided I didn't need a babysitter anymore, aligning their schedules so I'd never be alone. I thought life would get better. Instead, it got worse. With Emily gone, Jack stopped asking me to visit his room. He came to mine instead. The first night, he sat on my bed, rubbing my back, saying he was checking on his little angel. His hands slid under my pajamas, and I froze. He said this was what loving fathers did, but it was our secret. I wasn't one to back down, so the next day, when my mom was home, I told her everything. Her head tilted, and she sighed. "Sweetie, Emily must have planted these wild stories, didn't she?" Her tone demanded agreement. I insisted, "No, Mom, it's true. This isn't about Emily." Her voice turned harsh. "It's because of Emily, right?" I fell silent. That moment ended my childhood. From then on, Jack's actions worsened. He added a lock to my door that only worked from outside, claiming it was for my safety. He insisted I wear only the outfits he chose, frilly dresses that were too small. My mom called it sweet that he was so involved. I began writing letters to Emily about everything, but she never replied. The worst came after my 9th birthday. Jack came in drunk and did things that made me sick. He got angry about the mess and made me clean it, warning that no one would believe me, just like they didn't believe Emily. But that week, Emily sent a postcard, disguised as from a school friend, revealing my parents had threatened her to cut contact. She told me to check the teddy bear she'd given me before being fired. Inside was a tiny recorder and a note. "Hide this under your bed. I'm coming for you." I never got to use it. The next day, my teacher, Miss Thompson, kept me after school. She noticed bruises on my legs during gym and asked gentle questions until I spilled everything. Emily, Jack, my mom, all of it. I sobbed in her arms, feeling safe for the first time since Emily left. Miss Thompson stayed until I calmed, then said we had to see the principal. The principal, an older man in a faded gray suit, listened as Miss Thompson explained. His face grew stern. He made calls mentioning mandatory reporter and urgent placement. My stomach churned. Soon, 2 people arrived, Clara and David from Child Protective Services. They took me to a quiet room and asked me to recount everything. Jack's nighttime visits, the lock, the clothes, my mom's denial. Clara took notes while David asked soft questions. They photographed my bruises and called a nurse, Anna, who documented every mark, calling me brave. I felt scared, not brave. The principal called my parents, saying I was in trouble and needed picking up, not mentioning CPS to avoid tipping them off. Jack arrived first in his uniform, looking calm but tense. The principal made him wait in the office. My mom arrived later, tired and confused. I saw them through a window, Jack whispering as her face paled. Clara and David said I'd done the right thing and wouldn't go home that night. I'd stay with a foster family during the investigation. My heart sank. My parents were questioned in another room. I heard my mom's voice rise, calling it a misunderstanding, blaming Emily for planting lies. Jack played the perfect stepfather. Clara said I'd go to a foster home temporarily and gave me a bag of essentials. No frilly dresses, thankfully. The foster family, Henry and Margaret, lived 30 minutes away. Their home smelled of fresh bread, with walls covered in photos of fostered kids. They showed me to a simple bedroom with a small bed and dresser. No locks on the door. That first night, I barely slept, expecting footsteps. Margaret brought me warm milk when she heard me crying, sitting quietly until I slept. The next days were a blur of meetings. I repeated my story to social workers, therapists, and investigators. Each time was easier but harder, like reopening a wound. My mom and Jack hired a lawyer, Richard, in sharp suits. He called me troubled, saying I'd acted out since my real dad left, claiming Emily filled my head with lies. Supervised visits at CPS were tense. My mom cried, begging me to tell the truth, saying we could be a family if I stopped lying. Jack acted hurt, asking why I'd do this when he'd been so good to me. During one visit, when my mom stepped away and the supervisor was distracted, I grabbed her phone from her purse. I found texts between her and Jack from the previous night. He told her to stay calm, that their lawyer would fix everything, and they'd move far away once I was back. My mom replied she was scared. Jack said to trust him, that he'd handled this before. The supervisor caught me and took the phone, telling me not to touch others' things. I told Clara about the texts, but without proof, it was just my word against a cop and a nurse. Emily appeared at the first custody hearing looking weary. She brought a private investigator, Nathan, and a folder of evidence. She tried to explain why she was fired, how she'd noticed Jack's behavior, how my mom ignored it. Richard objected, calling her a bitter ex-employee seeking revenge. Emily had photos of gifts Jack bought me, lingerie disguised as costumes, inappropriate movies, and timestamps showing Jack home when he claimed to be working. The judge agreed to review them but needed more investigation. My mom stood in court, accusing Emily of jealousy and lies, saying she'd tried to seduce Jack. She cried, begging for her daughter back. Margaret wrote reports about my nightmares, how I flinched at sudden movements, how certain foods triggered memories of dinners with Jack. The court therapist said I showed trauma signs but couldn't pinpoint the cause. During visits, my mom grew cruel when unsupervised, whispering I was ruining everything, that I'd destroyed our family, that things would change if I came home. Jack's stares made my skin crawl. I wrote everything in a journal Margaret gave me, every threat, whisper, look. The therapist said it would help process trauma, but I think she wanted evidence. Emily and Nathan found Jack had lived in 3 states, always leaving suddenly. In one, he dated a woman, Laura, with a young daughter who reported abuse, but the case was dropped when they moved. Nathan found Laura, who was terrified and wouldn't testify, fearing Jack's cop connections. She gave Emily old police reports, but Richard got them dismissed as hearsay. I overheard Henry and Margaret say the caseworker was considering reunification with therapy and supervision. My mom was attending parenting classes and counseling, playing the perfect parent. I felt like I was suffocating, my screams unheard. Emily kept pushing, but the system worked against us. Then my mom messed up. She texted Emily threats, warning her to back off or face lawsuits, hinting at accidents. Emily saved every message. Jack slipped too, moving money, opening accounts, and visiting a storage unit late at night. Nathan found he was packing to flee. Emily requested an emergency hearing, saying they planned to run with me, but the judge delayed it 2 weeks, giving my parents time to perfect their act. I was losing hope, praying nightly for someone to believe me. In therapy, I broke down, telling Dr. Hayes about Miss Thompson, how she'd first noticed, how I wished I could see her again. Dr. Hayes, a mandated reporter, noted everything. The next week, Miss Thompson testified about finding me after class, the bruises, my unprompted confession. Richard claimed she'd planted ideas, but Miss Thompson had detailed, dated notes of my words. Jack must have sensed trouble. He sent a card through my mom during a visit, unchecked by the supervisor. It spoke of family, moving past misunderstandings, and fun times when I'd return as his little star. To others, it seemed sweet. To me, it was a threat. I showed Margaret sobbing, she called Clara. They documented the card's veiled threats and promises. My mom faltered. She met Emily at a cafe, offering money to drop everything. Emily recorded it, legal in our state with one party's consent. My mom admitted Jack had issues, that she loved him, that she'd watch him better if I returned. Emily asked if she knew what Jack did to me. My mom admitted seeing him leave my room at night, convincing herself he was just checking on me, refusing to believe the truth. At the final hearing, it all came together. Miss Thompson's testimony, Jack's threatening card, Emily's recording of my mom's admission, and evidence of Jack's past and escape plans. Jack turned on my mom, claiming she encouraged it, ignored signs, and wanted a father figure for me. My mom's facade collapsed. She screamed he was lying, then admitted seeing him leave my room, noticing inappropriate clothes, hearing my cries but calling them nightmares, choosing him to avoid being alone again. The judge terminated parental rights. Jack was arrested in court. My mom faced charges for child endangerment. Emily got emergency custody with a path to permanent guardianship. I could finally breathe. Police found horrific evidence on Jack's computer, photos, videos, and communications with other predators. My mom took a plea deal. 3 years, loss of parental rights, and no work with children. At sentencing, she apologized for not protecting me. I didn't respond. Some things can't be undone. Jack got 25 years. The prosecutor said he'd likely die in prison as inmates despise child abusers. I felt no pity. Emily's home was calm, safe. She painted my room green, my favorite color, with simple decor. That first night, I couldn't sleep, expecting footsteps. Emily sat in the hall, keeping watch. Therapy with Dr. Hayes was tough, predicting years of nonlinear healing. Some days I couldn't move, others I felt almost normal. Miss Thompson sent cards, attended therapy milestones, and became like an aunt, affirming my bravery. Emily was just Emily, helping with homework, cooking my favorites, taking me to age-appropriate films, letting me heal at my pace. She'd spent her savings on Nathan and took loans for lawyers, never giving up despite threats. She'd recognized Jack's behavior from her cousin's abuse, tried to warn my mom, and was fired for it. The recorder was for proof. She hadn't called CPS, scared and young, thinking Jack's badge would protect him. Henry and Margaret called me a success, noting most foster kids don't get justice. I knew I was lucky. My mom, out after 2 years for good behavior, sent letters claiming change. Emily left it to me. I said no. Some bridges stay burned. Jack died in prison after 5 years, attacked by an inmate who knew his crimes. I felt nothing. He'd taken enough. Now in college, I'm studying to be a child advocate, to listen, see signs, and fight for kids. Emily says I'll excel, that my pain will save others. Nightmares linger, I flinch at sudden touches, and trust is hard, but I have good days. Days I forget fear, feel normal, and am grateful to be alive, safe, loved. Emily adopted me at 16 in a quiet courthouse ceremony with Miss Thompson, Henry, Margaret, and Dr. Hayes. She cried, saying she'd wanted to be my mom since letting me go that night. People ask if I hate my mom. I don't, I pity her. She chose a monster over her child and will live with that forever. If you loved the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, follow our channel, and tap the notification bell to stay updated on our future content. Catch you in the next one.